Hey guys, and welcome to a new guide. Today I'm gonna show you the way I've been playing the Reworked Shaco in an AP hybrid manner and why I think he's better this way than AD or tanky without AP. I played a fair amount of games, so now I got an okay understanding of him. That doesn't mean that I do everything right, I just did what felt best, so there might be better options that I don't know of yet. If there's something you disagree with or think about differently, then be sure to remind me without screaming at me. Now that that's said, let's get started. Today's guide is going to be a little different. I'm going to be structuring the whole thing, so you're going to be able to click on the annotations on the screen to get to different sections. We're going to be starting with the jungle path, followed with overall gameplay and how the playstyle changed. I won't go into detail how to play Shaco completely and talk more about the stuff that has changed. Then I'll talk about my skill order, which is quite a lot different than before. After that, we're gonna tackle my favorite subject, the build, and how it affects the gameplay. So there's gonna be some playstyle talk here as well. Last, but certainly not least, we will be going over the masteries and runes. Enough structuring now, let's start off with the jungle clear. You'll always be starting at a buff, which will be the blue buff. You can also start at red if you really want to, but doing Crux and tokens is pretty much suicide this early, so I prefer to start at blue, stacking 2 boxes behind it at 40 seconds. Then moving over to Grump and putting 2 boxes in front of him far enough that he's not getting triggered. This feels kinda strange, but you get used to it, and the clear is extremely healthy. You have to remember to make good use of the backstabbing passive. That means to hit the buff in the back as often as you can. After that, I usually just do a full clear, the normal way you always do it. Expectation, of course, being if I see a good ganking opportunity. You have to think if it's even worth your time. A little rule I made for myself is if the enemy laner is half health or better under it and pushing towards your laner, it's worth coming, considering if your laner has some sort of CC or fightability too, of course. For clearing, there's not much more I can say. Later on we're gonna be talking about build options that make it easier to get through the jungle as well though. Now let's talk about the gameplay. How has it changed? How do I adapt? If you're playing AP Shaco, you now have to emphasize more on utilizing your boxes, because they now have scaling health, which makes them actually useful in skirmishes, team fights, and they won't get one shot with any AoE ability like a Shyvana W, which was extremely annoying when that was still the case. Another big change is that your Q is now gonna be used to initiate, which sounds really dumb, but the thing is, your E does execute damage. And if you just walk up to someone and place a box in their face, there's a high chance they're just gonna walk off. Another approach, of course, which is more used in lane, but you should also utilize when jungling, is setting up fights and 1v1 duels with your boxes. The simple trick to get low and bait people into a giant box trap still works. An even better thing about trapping someone now is that if the boxes are not enough to kill him, at some point when you have enough AP, the scaling on your Q helps you to ditch out additional damage. Before you only used it to escape. In a situation like this, it gives you amazing duel power, and if that's not enough, you still got your E, which should be used as an execute or at least against targets who have already lost some health. The only other time where you want to be using it is when you just want to slow someone down for your team or yourself because the target is quicker than you, but you should still be able to fight him without the E then now. If not, that would be pretty stupid. After mastering the use of your spells, you gotta understand how to team fight. This also depends on the build you're building, which we'll get to later. There are 2 options. First is to get in, kill someone and use your ult and box to get out again and burst as much as you can. Second is the more tanky way, going in and doing pretty much the same thing, maybe not to burst someone instantly, but to duel and stick to some people and soak up some damage. Which of these you'll use depends on your playstyle and of course the situation you have to adapt to. As for skilling order, I will be starting with W, followed by E and then Q. Now comes the part where you have to decide what you need more. I mostly skill 1 more time on Q and then 1 on W again. I know this sounds strange, but it lets you farm a lot better this way and makes your box stronger when ganking and putting it behind an enemy. Then I usually skill the Q until I get 3 seconds invisibility. Only expectation being if I feel like there's a lot of people who can easily kill me, I max it out directly to get away easier. If that's not the case, I get 3 seconds invisibility on my Q and after that I get all the points in my W, because the other only option, killing the E, is not worth for me because it still does damage as an execute. I also skill my ult as often as I can. I feel like there might be some people disagreeing here, but this is the way that has worked really nicely for me. Moving over to my favorite section, the build. We're gonna be starting like we always do, with a hunter's machete and a hunter's potion. Followed by that, I most of the time get a tiamat, which gives you great clear and makes Krugs and toucans so much easier, and of course helps you to proc Thunderlords quicker as well. I prefer this option by a lot. If you want to go the more AP way, you can skip this item as well. Next, I'm building out Runic Echoes with Red Smite, which actually makes me feel like I have more burst than when building warriors. I also get boots here, which I don't build out directly because we now have enough movement speed to work with. You can build out these boots to sorcerers anytime you feel like it, you want it or need it. Now you're gonna have several options to either get amazing dual power that slows you down a little early but makes you scale really well, or quick burst and more dueling as well. I'm talking about Rod of Ages and Hextech Gunblade. Also a quick note, I don't want to build Hextech Protobell anymore after nerf, and I feel like this item gives him a lot more options and versatility. How I decided what to buy here is, if I went Tiamat, I usually went with Gunblade, because buying Rod after getting so many items first kinda sucks for the scaling, but you could still be doing that if you really want to. If I didn't go for Tiamat, I choose to be an AP heavy Bruiser. When I finish Rod, I also get Hextech every time as well though. Most of the time I go for Hextech and Tiamat instead. I know this is kinda confusing, but I hope you understand. Let's make it even more confusing. You could also get Hextech Revolver and Sheen first before building out Hextech. The situations where I did that, I felt like I was stable and just needed more burst. Reasons to finish Gunblade first are to be able to stick to people because of the active, to have more dual power due to the healing, which heals you for so much if you get enough boxes or the explosion of your clone. It feels amazing. Last reason could be to be healthy in jungle as well. Now that we got over that part, it's gonna be a little bit more clear again. If you haven't built out Sheen already, this is where you do it. Now you can only keep Sheen and move over to another item, but I like to just finish one of the Sheen items here. Your options are Trinity, Lichbane and Iceborne Gauntlet. When I go the tanky Rod build, I usually get Gauntlet as well. I don't even know why, but I just love this item and how it feels to use it. When skipping Rod, I still sometimes go for it when I feel like I need a little tankiness and it doesn't even hurt your burst that much. Lichbane, of course, is the more aggressive option and gives you way more burst. This is what I get when I'm ahead. The last option is Trinity, which is something in between. It gives you more chaseability, more combat stats, but it costs a whole lot. This is the item that I get the least. It's still something to consider in some situations, I feel like. We still have a Tiamat lying around in our inventory, so at some point we have to decide to either sell it or build it out to a Titanic Hydra, which is what I mostly do late game. It gives you instant burst and more wave clear, which is always useful. Something experimental, which I'm certain works fine with this build as well, is to build a static shift. Situations where you want to be doing this is when you have to split or defend a lot of waves, but it also gives you more burst and most importantly is really fun to use. As last items, after skipping Tiamat or not, I usually just go for more AP. Rabadance is most of the time my pick, but Rylai's is nice as well for more tankiness, plus a nice slow. If you need magic resist or more magic penetration, you can go for Abyssal Scepter or Void Staff. I really hope that you understood the path and the options that I talked about. I know I started at one item, then jumped over one and then got back to another again. If you didn't understand everything I talked about, then be sure to ask me in the comments below. My Masteries haven't changed from the last ones I've shown. Going for Bounty Hunter in the Ferocity tree, which is the best option in my opinion. In Cunning I get Greenfather's Gift, plus of course Thunderlords. My runes are something that you don't have to agree with, but I just like to go with 9 AD marks, 9 ability power seals. I'm still thinking if I should go for more armor instead, but I like the burst it gives you. It's probably not that smart actually, but it works for me. And for being healthy in the jungle, it doesn't hurt you at all, cause Smite heals you now and your boxes keep you away from getting damaged. For glyphs and quins I go for AP as well. The 80 marks I took to have a little better farming and just some auto attack damage. This marks the end of my guide. If I find a better build or playstyle, I'll be sure to make a video about it. But for now this has worked really well for me and I'm enjoying the different way of playing Shaco. But what do you think? Do you agree with this build? What do you build? And do you think Shaco's still much weaker after trying him out on the live servers? Be sure to leave me all your thoughts in the comments below, without any aggression of course. I stream in the evenings, so if you want to catch me, link is in the description below. Also, I'm posting more actively on Twitter, showing you progress on my videos and asking you about opinions. Link is in the description as well. I hope you're having an amazing day. See ya!